Hi, this is Hoots' diagnose of a noise in the front of a 2003 Escape. Only really when you turn the wheel slightly to the left, you hear kind of like a grinding, a little bit of noise, but not too bad. And it's due to the fact that this thing has got 190,000. I'm assuming that it's going to be a wheel bearing, because these are sealed bearings with no oil in them, and it's probably about due. So we're going to take this apart. Hi, I'm Hoot. Now, what we're going to do is go outside and I'll show you what we got. Well, we got the tire off. Got these two bolts that hold the caliper on back here off. And you take your little screwdriver in here and just kind of pry them shoes back all the way so it compresses the piston. Get your caliper out the way. And then we'll get down to the axle nut here, which is 1.25 inches. You're going to need a brake bar. Get on there and break that loose. And your tie rod in. Hit it here on the side to bust it loose. Don't hit it on the threads. Okay, let's take a break here. I'll be right back. Now we got these two strut mount bolts that's got to come off. Lower ball joint bolt. And you're going to have to reposition the jack because this is all going to be loose, so you're going to have to go back with another jack back here because this jack is no longer going to be able to support it. It's going to have to drop down. And then we're going to hook up a puller to pull this axle out. Okay. Now we got this bolt here you got to take for the low ball joint. Now I already got these bolts out. Two bolts here that goes to the upper strut. And then of course you got your axle nut, which is about 1 1/16 inches. And then you got your tie rod end here, which ain't no big deal. When you hit it, to loosen it, hit it here on the side. Don't hit there and wreck the threads. Hit it here on the side. And then once you get it all to apart, we'll get back with you on what to do. Now this is basically what it looks like all apart. Got your half shaft just here hanging. Lower ball joint. One nut takes that off. Two bolts there. And of course your tie rod in. Got a jack here. And a jack here. And put your tire underneath there just in case something does go wrong with a jack. You got your caliper tied up here. That's it. Most of all, don't forget that wheel sensor. Otherwise you'll be breaking it off. Make sure you get that out of there. Just put it up out here, out of the way. Just like I got my calipers hung up here out of the way with a tie strap. Okay, we're about to pull this axle off. Got it set up here. And basically we're just going to push in a little bit and release that spline that's on there. Once you get it on there with a little stress, all you need to do is just hit it a few times right there. It'll loosen up. Give it a little bit more. And real shortly, that thing will be off. Well, we got the hub on the ground. There's 6.5 shaft. Everything kind of just hanging there. Now the next best is to actually get these bearings out of here. And there's the bearing we got to change. Well, let me get set up and I'll get back with you. Now what I did was just set this up here and put this 1.25 inch socket. It fits in that hole real good. Hit right here, which normally comes through that hole. And you notice the bearings all fell apart. But I hit right there. Give it a good sharp blow, about 2 or 3 times, and it was out of there. Okay, now let's get the rest of it out. Now when I got this in the vise here, I got this device here trying to grab that edge of that race there because it ain't much room there. And so if I'm squeezing that in and pushing this out, this is just a spacer in here to push on this axle. That's all you need. But I got my clamp here. I got to press that race off of there and then we'll be done with the axle part of it. Let's see if it'll work. As you can see, it's actually got a gap right there now where that tool is, and it's actually starting to gap. So this tool is starting to pull that off. Just keep turning it a little bit, beating it a little bit, and come easy slow. Now what we got here is the new bearing has already been pressed in. This is the old one. Now it is a very tight fit, but you can use your old bearing. See, it's kind of busted up here, but you can use your old bearing to drive this new one that's already all the way down. But this thing will sit just enough in that lip to where you can pound this in, hitting it here, here, you know, going around the edge, each edge, until that bearing goes all the way in the depth of this right here. And that's your hub right there. And that's half the battle, because now we got to get that bearing on this one. And we'll set this up and see what we're going to do. Now this is the other half, the hub, and this shaft here, once we get it all polished up, it's also going to have to go in here. It's going to have to be pressed in nice and easy. Don't get excited and start getting it in there cockeyed. I'm going to find something now to set this up, and I'm going to get back with you. Hold on now. Okay, what we got here now is your hub. We've already got it tore apart in two pieces because this bearing is going to be down in here. And now this is the new bearing. It's already been pressed in with the old bearing. Cleaned up the hole real nice, and then start pounding 1, 2, 3, and 4, just easy at a time until it goes all the way down in there. It's a tight fit. It's a tight fit. And now what we got to do is get the axle part into this one, and it's also going to have to press in, but I'm going to have to find this little setup here. Now I'm going to get back with you. Now hold on now. Now another thing you can't forget is your snap ring. Now that snap ring is going to go right in here before you press this on. So don't forget to put your snap ring on there, because then you're going to have a mess on your hands trying to get them all back apart. So that's what we're up against right now. We're going to put this snap ring in. Now what I'm going to try and do, I already lubed up this hole with a little Vaseline, but this is going to have to go on here just like that. And then you're going to find yourself a good socket, like this one's about 1 1/4 inches. Get that all straight and just take it easy and tap it down. This, by the way, is the race that come off. It's very tight fit, and I did have to cut it with the torch, but you got to be real careful so you don't hit your axle. And unless you got your press on hand, that's what you got to do. But let's see if we can pound this out now and see what happens. Now what I'm kind of doing is tapping it and turning it a little at a time, and turn it and make sure it's not going in there crooked. So you just keep tapping and looking, and before you know it, you'll be at the bottom. Now pounding this in, it all worked good. As you can see, it's in there. But when you start going through the second half of the bearing, this like two-stage bearing here. When it gets through the first half, and when it starts going through the second half, what happened was this half fell out just like it did here. So don't worry, just put it that half, like it's sort of like this. Put it back in there and put it over there and tap it in from this end. So push one end from one end, and when it gets to this point, pushing it from this end. And it looks to me like everything's going to be alright. Alright. Now putting it back together, get it in this spot down here first, and put the bolt right here. Run it through this hole. Once you get that in there, don't tighten it up yet. And then kind of get it in here. Use your pry rod here, and these bolts here go through there. Get that on, get this tight, get that done, and then go back and do your tie rod in, and then we're pretty much got the bearing part of it done. Alright, now hold on. One thing you don't want to do is forget your little ABS wheel sensor. It goes right in here, and if you don't take it off you might break the wire, so be careful. Put that back in there, and all it takes is a little 8mm socket, and that's all it takes. Okay, now that we got everything torqued down, make sure you torque that big nut down. We're going to go back with a new rotor, and we've already used the national bearing set, and then we're going to use the brake best linings, which is the least expensive, because I don't like that high metallic ones that get too noisy. So we're about ready down to the basic now. As far as putting this down, you notice I repositioned my jack here, then I'm going to take that jack out there, otherwise I won't be able to get the tire on. And you notice we tied this rotor up here just to keep it out of the way and keep it from hanging on that cord right there, that brake line. So I'm going to put the rotor on and cut the strap and mount it up right there. Hold down now. Take your setup like this, C-clamp, use your old shoe right here, push it back in as far as it'll go, because we got a new rotor and new shoes, so we're going to need all the clearance we can, so you got to push this back, and then you can take it out and put your new shoes in. Well, here we got it all back together, new rotor, caliper, we're ready for a tire. This is about all the tools you're going to need: hammer, pliers, good breaker bar, 1.25 inch, 18mm socket, some WD-40 penetrating oil, 15mm needle nose, 1/4 inch drive, 8mm, and a couple of pry rods in case you need them. And it's best if you have probably 2 of these jacks and a little light. So I guess this concludes the replacement of the bearing, and have a good day. Check for further films. And oh yeah, the last thing to do is the road test. And we just been on one, and the noise is gone, so that's good news. Now all we gotta do is the other side when we get around to it. Bye now.